Hey everyone, it's Daniel from Infovest here. Just informing you here on the market news and the economy. I wanted to talk about a very interesting topic about the worst performing currency of 2022. Now, we talked about, I'm not sure if in my videos or through a newsletter, I talked about the best performing currency, which was the Russian ruble. But the worst performing currency of 2022 happens to be the Pakistani rupee. And so Pakistan is going through a lot of economic turmoil, and I'll post a link for you to read up on this. And it's very interesting to see. We're seeing certain markets, right? Certain economies, and much of the smaller one and the emerging markets that we're seeing being affected by the global price issue and the inflation issue and the supply constraints that are happening around the world. And on top of that, I talked about in my previous video about the US dollar's strength and the rise of the US dollar and how that could affect a lot of the other smaller nations out there. And we're seeing that with Sri Lanka, right? We've already seen that Sri Lanka's prime minister fled the country. They're looking for an IMF bailout as well. They need money. They're going bankrupt, and a lot of political issues. And on top of that, food prices are increasing, fuel prices are increasing, and a lot of the consumers are feeling the pinch when it comes to their spending and what they're earning. And top of that, with the shortages of fertilizer, which brings shortages of food, basically, if you get a lot of hungry people who don't have food on the table or having a tough time to find food on the table, then definitely you're going to get riots and things will build up. So, the same scenario, and it's very interesting to see that this is starting to add up. Right? We talked about the recession that we are unofficially in, and we talked about the dangers of it and the fact that we're still trying to figure out. When we look at the markets right now, the S&P 500, Nasdaq, all the equity indices, they're having a little bit of a bounce. What we're seeing, and this bounce is mainly off of I'm talking more in specific in U.S. This bounce that we're seeing is mainly off of the idea of getting a 75 basis point rate hike rather than a 100 basis point. Top of that, you're seeing a short covering rally where a lot of shorts are being punched out, and hope and optimism that things are eventually going to get better, and hopefully the next inflation print is not going to be as bad as what people are expecting. And another thing is, it's fully priced in that we are getting a recession, or we are in a recession, whatever you want to call it. And the only question is, how severe is this recession? And we're seeing the cracks. We're seeing the breaks. We're seeing Sri Lanka, right, being affected by this. Also Italy, right? Just today morning, right, bonds basically ripped today, the U.S. bonds on kind of a Biden news of the COVID virus. But if you look at the Italian bonds, the yields went up, and on basically you're hearing Mario Draghi, the Prime Minister of Italy, resign. And there you're seeing a situation where basically Italy is starting to also be affected and see their kind of economies start to deteriorate, with all these political problems as well, with debt problems as well, and also higher yields, which is putting pressure on consumers, and most importantly, inflation as well. And there are some, and I'll try to find that article and post it in the description here. But Italy, a lot of businesses see that inflation could be elevated for some time and even still be elevated into next year. So, you're hearing a lot from businesses, especially in these nations, saying that, we're probably going to cope and deal with higher prices, higher inflation for another year or so. And things are not going to get better this year, especially. And Bank of Canada also came out and they said we're probably going to have to deal with higher inflation this year. We're probably going to stay around 7-8% inflation this year. ECB said the same thing. We're dealing with higher inflation problems. Now we got the Federal Reserve coming out next week. They're going to talk about and hike rates most likely to 75 basis point with a maybe 24% chance of a 100 basis point rate hike. And or less than 30% chance of a 100 basis point rate hike, and we'll see what they have to say when it comes to inflation as well, right? And how do you tackle this? The IMF basically came out and they said that a lot of countries should go and front load the rates to bring down inflation lower, but you can do all you can with the financial part, but really, a lot of people go out and they say, and I was hearing it today. I was overhearing these few people at the gym, and they were talking about, hey, this inflation, these prices are going up because of the money printing. Just stop the money printing. But it's not entirely that, right? We've been doing money printing for a very long time, right? 2008 and 2009, we've been doing money printing, but we haven't had crazy inflation like we're seeing today, which are levels back seen in 1980s. And the main cause and reason of this is the supply chain disruption, right? So this war between Russia and Ukraine is creating that supply chain disruption. And most importantly, the lockdowns in China is creating that supply chain disruption. The fact that you have still labor shortages is creating also those disruptions as well, right? The ability for companies to fulfill the demands and the needs of people, and so on. So tying this back again to the worst performing currency being the Pakistan's rupee, right? Over there, you're seeing higher prices, higher inflation. Fuel costs went up 56% in that nation. There is also political issues that's happening within the government as well. Riots and protests and military as well. And also Pakistan going out and asking for a bailout from IMF due to the debt burdens, and especially because the US dollar continues to move up. And as that continues to move up, the debt that these countries have to pay is going to be harder and harder. So if you have your own currency and your bank has very low reserve of these currencies, and your currency is just dropping. If you look back from May 2021 till now, the currency dropped about 30%. So if you have this currency that's just dropping and dropping and dropping, and it's your own home currency, but you have to pay debt in another land's currency, right? aka the US dollar, you have no control on that. You have no control on trying to bring the US dollar down. So all you can do is go and ask for bailout, go and ask for help, try to do something with your own currency. There's also talks that China may even give a relief package to Pakistan as well, to help with the with the debt burden that they have. But they already owe Pakistan a lot of money already. And it's very interesting. Again, a lot of these countries that have worked with Pakistan, and basically using their sorry, not work with Pakistan. I misplaced my thoughts. A lot of countries that worked with China, like for example, Pakistan on certain things, they owe money to China in US dollars. So China is now looking at all the situation and be like, okay, you guys all owe me debt, you all owe me money in US dollar, and you're all bailing out, right? So it's creating kind of this mess, and it's starting to spiral, and now you're seeing that China's taking advantage in the sense that a lot of countries will start owing China and will be in the mercy of China because of the amount of debt that they owe, right? So what does that mean? They could sell their bonds, try to bring cash back into the country, right? There's not much investment going on in Pakistan as well. Not many people want to invest right now because of the issues that are happening, right? Yes, the currency is low. Sure, you can export more goods, but when it comes to importing, you can't really do so, right? So you're at a deficit there as well. So if you got a currency problem, you've got a low reserve issue, higher inflation, you owe a lot of debt, and you're in a very very close situation of bankruptcy, and you need a bailout from IMF. And if it doesn't happen, then you could possibly see same situation what you saw in Sri Lanka might carry over into Pakistan and many other countries as well. And it'll be very interesting to also see the situation in Italy as well. Now you have the ECB, one of the strongest, one of the big central banks out there, and that could help and bail out Italy. But the signs of recession is just starting right here, and this is the start of global markets, right, of the international markets. Even though you are seeing some signs, but you're not seeing it as ugly in the US and in Canada versus those countries there. But this will all have an effect, this will all have an impact for North America as well, right? On top of that, to add even more problems and more issues, you have the natural gas pipeline, rumors about that shutting down and causing, closing the tap completely of natural gas to Europe, which is also going to affect Italy the most, which is also going to affect Europe the most, right? And it's going to exacerbate the problem even more in terms of energy prices. And a lot of these emerging, countries are going to be affected, right? In that article, they mentioned that the government have just passed on a lot of these prices because of these supply chain issues, a lot of these prices, and because of inflation, a lot of these prices onto their consumers, and they're feeling the pinch. A normal person who's earning a wage is feeling the pinch, right? And that could trickle into North America as you get less buying that's coming in. You get the US dollar that is moving up. Now, sure, that is deflationary or disinflationary, but it doesn't help the companies and the economy that depend on people continuing to buy goods. So, things could start to pick up a little bit worse than what it is. Check out these markets, these emerging markets. Check out, Pakistan. Check out Sri Lanka. Check out the link that I posted below. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment below, and subscribe if you like hearing more news about the economy. See you guys, and I hope to see you around. Bye.